Good evening and welcome to the Diamond Joe Casino. We're in the Harbor Room here for the 47th Annual Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award. Tonight's honoree is, of course, Cascade native Gary Dolphin. You know him as the voice of the Hawkeyes, and he's also the Vice President of Business Development at U.S. Bank. And of course, the reason we're honoring him with the First Citizen Award is the great amount of work that he does for area nonprofits in the tri-state area. Our sponsor tonight of this live stream event is the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. And I have with me Nancy Van Milligan from the Community Foundation. Hi Nancy, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Great, so thank you so much for sponsoring this live stream. I wanted to ask you about the First Citizen Award. We honor all kinds of people who are philanthropists in our community, who give back to the community, and why that's important. The Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque is obviously a conduit for that kind of giving.
Yes, well, you know, the Community Foundation's mission is to strengthen communities and to inspire giving, and so Gary is the perfect role model for both of those things.
And when did you meet Gary, or have you worked on projects with him before?
Well, you know, I think Gary served on so many boards of nonprofits that we work with. He's at every golf outing and often the MC, and so I go to a lot of nonprofit events, and there's Gary, but I've known him for years, since we first came to town, because he is so involved in the community.
You guys are neighbors right down there, not too far away at the U.S. Bank?
Right across the street from U.S. Bank. I can see him sometimes across the way in the window.
So he actually does do banking sometimes.
He does do banking.
Okay, squeezes in a little work. Well, we have the Community Foundation's video. I think we're going to cue that up and play that for the folks. Nancy, thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for your sponsorship of this event.
Thank you, Amy. I think the TH did such a great job on choosing Gary Dolphin as the first citizen, and glad to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
The Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque is the place for givers and doers with big dreams and generous hearts. Whether you want to help children succeed, boost economic opportunity, or drive equity and inclusion, we can help you create greater good today and for years to come. Learn how you can strengthen your community at dbqfoundation.org.
That's all right. I'm here with Bruce Merriweather. Bruce Merriweather is a retired banker, and I understand that you might be the person that first got Gary Dolphin into the bank.
I do have that privilege. Gary came and talked to me, and I've known him a long time. I knew him when he was in the radio broadcast business, and I've always thought the world of him, and we found a mix at our bank that allowed him to do his broadcast work as well as work for the bank. And he's such an ethical guy. I knew he'd give us both his pound and a half, you know, and he continues to do that. So we're very proud of Gary.
Yeah, and what made you think that banking would be the right fit for him, and how does that fit with his greater persona? He knows so many different people in all walks in the community.
That's it. He knows a lot of people. We had him working in business development, and I think he could walk in any store in Dubuque or any organization. They knew Gary right away. Glad to talk to him. So he had all the tickets for public relations and marketing and business development. He did a tremendous job for us.
Now you have the distinction of being a former First Citizen winner yourself from 1994.
I think it was 93, but maybe it was 4. I was shocked today when somebody, I think it's not true, but somebody said, I think you might be the oldest surviving First Citizen. I said, I can't be. I don't know if that's right.
I don't know if that's quite right, but at any rate, what do you remember about that and about receiving that award and what that meant at the time?
Well, it meant a great deal to me and my family. It's always nice to be recognized. You always feel like there's so many other people that deserve that, and there are. You don't do these things, excuse me, alone, but it's very meaningful to me, and it still is.
Well, that's pretty impressive for U.S. Bank to have 2 First Citizen winners
That's right.
in the fold. So that probably says something about the caliber of people you're picking to work there.
Well, I hope so. I'm very proud of the bank. I was there 38 years, and I went there right out of college, not dissimilar to what Gary did, and it was my career, and I cherish it.
Well, we appreciate you coming back tonight and being part of this program for us and making the trip to honor Gary. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
I want to play a little bit of video from the first of the year when our sports editor, Jim Leitner, had a chance to sit down with Gary and do an interview with him. Let's hear a little bit from Gary in his own words.
So I've never really looked at the 8 to 5 thing or 7 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever it is. I know that when I leave here in the day, if I don't have a ball game, I probably got a fundraiser somewhere, and I'm on, a half a dozen boards and charitable organizations, and happy to help out as long as it comes on me about helping other people in need at all different levels and degrees. I mean, some really more serious than others, but it taught me valuable lessons at age 14 on, okay, you got to get back to your community. You need to help people like yourself who are in need. So I've always kind of used that as a backbone. I'm getting to the age now where you can only handle so many events a year where you can't say yes to everything, but I have my favorites. I think the schools are so important in our community. The nonprofits are becoming more and more important, not that they haven't always been, but as some of these government programs cease or go away, that makes United Way and Hills and Dales and Camp Courageous and the Boys and Girls Club, Hillcrest Family Service, makes all those much more important and valuable to our community, and that takes money. It takes a lot of volunteer hours and fundraising efforts by all of us to make Dubuque what it is. But let me say right up front, U.S. Bank has been tremendous in allowing me to do, or I should say they've been extremely flexible and understanding of what this University of Iowa thing is. I mean, most of the people here are season ticket holders or have been down through the years, especially the old First National Bank group. And I came here because of Mike Riley and Bruce Merriweather, who were two of the bigger Hawkeye. Well, Mike obviously was a great Hawk, is a great Hawk, still in many people's memories. But so when the opportunity came along, I simply went to the bank and I said, hey, look, if you want me to walk out the door today, I will, but this is going to occupy a lot of my time between Labor Day and April Fool's Day. Hopefully we're still playing basketball in late March. I said I would be willing to stay in a part-time basis and work as much as I could with the bank, because obviously being the voice of the Hawkeyes gets you in a few doors that perhaps you might not get in. And they were more than willing to do that, and I had already been at the bank for 10 years when this job came along, so I think they knew they were getting an honest day's work, and so it's continued. It's been this is our 20th year, doing the Hawk games, and it's a labor of love for both. I love banking. And I love broadcasting because it's something new every day. As you know, an Iowa broadcast is so unlike any other broadcast. It is a real social event for listeners. Part of that is Iowa, being an ag state, has always been a great radio state. And it hasn't changed a whole lot from when I was growing up in the 60s, listening to Zabel and Gonder and Bob Brooks. They talk about politics on the air. They talk about a lot of different things. How's the family? How are the grandkids? And so understanding the news events of the day, the civic events of the day, because they're always the listeners are always sending you notes about anniversaries and my uncle served at Pearl Harbor. So it's good to know what's going on in the outside world, other than just being pigeonholed into who is Iowa playing that day. And so I read, as hard as it might be, I read the financial page and the news section of the Telegraph Herald as much as I do the sports section. And I read any number of newspapers and magazines just to, because you're always going to catch something that would be kind of a quirky, unique thing to mention on your broadcast. So I'm always looking for things to talk about outside of sports, and you're able to blend the two together. It works out real well for me anyway.
Hi, I'm here with Mike Donahue, who is the regional president of U.S. Bank. Thank you for helping me through that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Gary. So he's your colleague. We see him on the radio, we hear him on the radio and broadcasts and out and about at all kinds of fundraisers. Is it true that he actually shows up to work at the bank?
Well, it's always we always have a dolphin sighting every once in a while, and I always joke with Gary and say, geez, I haven't seen you in a while. Do we need to put you through new employee orientation again? But There's no question, Gary, he's seen and heard all around this community and across the state, obviously. But he does a wonderful job of balancing his commitment to the bank as well as his passion for broadcasting and the Hawkeyes.
Gary can talk to sports fans of any stripe. He also knows about history and about agriculture. He can really has a broad knowledge base, I think, that communicating with, I'm sure, your customers.
He does, and I think probably the key for Gary is just the way that he relates to people. I think you can go back to how he was brought up, and his dad dying early. I mean, he grew up quick. But to Gary, relationships are everything. And so he can talk to a sports fan about the Hawks. He can run into just Joe Lunchbucket on the street, and Joe Lunchbucket will walk away from that interaction believing that he and Gary are now best friends. And it's so funny to hear people come up to me and go, yeah, I know Gary Dolphin. And you kind of start to ask them how they got to know him. And it's just one of those odd, once-off interactions, but that's the impact that Gary has. His heart's as big as this town is, and his character and his integrity are unmatched. But it's really his connection. I mean, he really takes a personal interest, and you hear that in his broadcasting. I think that's why he's so good. And I hear people talk about how he's admired in that industry, because he does such great background work on all the sports, the players, and he brings those little tidbits of information. He does the same thing with his relationships with the bank, and I think that's really where he hits a home run.
Well, we had a chance to talk to Bruce Merriweather, so the bank can be proud to have 2 First Citizen award winners among its employees and former employees, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we couldn't be more proud. So we're very, very excited for Gary and thrilled that Bruce was able to come back tonight.
Thanks so much for being here, and thanks for visiting with me tonight, Mike.
Very well.
Mayor Buell. So I have Mayor Roy Buell with us tonight. Just tell me a little bit. We're running out of time here, about ready to start the program, but if you would, just tell me a little bit about your experience in getting to know Gary Dolphin. It goes back a ways?
Oh, it goes back probably 47, 48 years since I first met Gary, and he's always been that type of person that steps up to help other people. And as mayor, I get to go to a lot of events, United Way, fundraisers, and invariably,
you see your share of Gary.
Yeah, he's the MC, and he's doing his part, and he's making his contribution, and really there couldn't be a more deserving first citizen of Dubuque.
Well, thanks so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. We're ready to go. I think the program's going to start in just a few minutes. We'll give you a little shot of the room. Thanks for being here.
Program in just 2 minutes.
task whenever you're ready. I'm going to get Brian's head good to go.
Good evening once again. If you'd take your seats, we'll begin our program. Good evening. If you take your seats, if you can find a seat, we've got a full house this evening. We'll be starting our program. Good evening once again, and on behalf of the employee owners of the Telegraph Herald and our parent company, Woodward Communications, I'm pleased to welcome you to the First Citizen Award presentation for our 47th annual First Citizen Award, in honoring our recipient this year, Gary Dolphin. My name is Brian Cooper. I'm TH Editorial Page Editor and Special Projects Resource. And I have the privilege and the nervousness of being the MC with the Master MC sitting right here in front of me. So he's going to be holding up little scorecards here in a minute. Just a few reminders for us this evening. If you didn't get a chance when you came in this evening, please sign the guest book. It's out in the lobby area. And if you didn't get a chance to go through the receiving line before the program, we've told Gary he must stick around to shake every hand and give every autograph requested before we'll let him out of here this evening. Tonight's event is being live streamed over telegraphherald.com, so we're happy to be able to show the program to those who couldn't make it tonight. Because of the weather, there was a charter bus of Iowa State boosters came over from Ames, but they called and said they couldn't make it, so but we are happy to be able to put the program on telegraphherald.com, and we do appreciate our friends at Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque for sponsoring the live stream broadcast. We have a little video. Now a word from our sponsor. We have a little video from our friends at the Community Foundation, so if you put your attention to the screens.
The Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque is the place for givers and doers with big dreams and generous hearts. Whether you want to help children succeed, boost economic opportunity, or drive equity and inclusion, we can help you create greater good today and for years to come. Learn how you can strengthen your community at dbqfoundation.org.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to invite you to applaud, but we do appreciate Nancy Van Milligan and
for nearly a half century, the Telegraph Herald is
of Greater Dubuque for sponsoring our live stream and being a big part of our First Citizen Award program. And also, even though we're live streaming the program now, but if you didn't, well, you are here, so if you know some folks who didn't make the program, we are archiving that
for nearly a half century, the Telegraph
Herald.com as well. So the live stream program is saved and archived. I'd like to make some introductions now of folks from Telegraph Herald and Woodward Communications, and we've got so many people here. We're going to ask you to hold your applause, but I do want to make some important introductions this evening. First, Steve Fisher is our publisher and also a member of the First Citizen Selection Committee. Steve. We had this problem last year, too. I know you can't withhold the urge to applaud for Steve Fisher. You just hear the name and you just want to burst into applause. But Steve is not only our publisher at the Telegraph Herald, he's also the publisher of Woodward Community Media and also general manager of Woodward Printing Services. So we're trying to line him up with a paper route too, just to help him fill out his day. Telegraph Herald directors, Amy Gilligan is there in the back. Amy, as of January 1st, became my successor as executive editor of the Telegraph Herald, and she's also a member of the selection committee. And you can applaud for our new editor, don't you think? Mike Fortman is our group director of advertising. Mike. Lee Leeser, interim circulation director. Michelle Schmidt is our director of promotions and community relations, and she's new in her new role as of January 1. Matt Conley is our interactive media database director. And we're also pleased to welcome several members of our corporate staff and corporate executives. Tom Woodward is our president and CEO. Tom. Bob Woodward is our Vice President of Strategic Planning and Business Development, right there. Let's see, was Becky able to make it? I didn't see her. Or Karen Rudin? Okay, so we'll mark them absent. Last but not least, I would like to recognize Jody Dodd of the Telegraph Herald Promotion Department. Jody works with the folks of the Diamond Joe, with several of us at the TH to help put together the entire program. So Jody, there in the back, standing by the mayor. All right, Jody, thank you. And you can give a round of applause to everybody now. And while we are giving thanks, we would like to thank our friends at the Diamond Joe. This is the 8th year, by my calculation, that we've hosted this event at the Diamond Joe, and we really appreciate the work by General Manager Wendy Rundy, Lori Ball, who is our go-to person, and everybody at the Diamond Joe for treating us so well and making this a truly special evening. So thanks to the Diamond Joe. The First Citizen Award has been part of this community since 1970, but not everybody has been in the community that long, and there are many folks who may not be familiar with the history of the First Citizen Award. And so we put together a little video that we'd like to show regarding the history of the First Citizen Award.
For nearly a half-century, the Telegraph Herald has recognized and celebrated commitment and contributions toward making the Dubuque community a better place in which to live, work, and play. It's called the Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award, and it has become the community's foremost honor. The award has evolved since its debut on New Year's Eve 1970, when the Telegraph Herald announced that it had selected civic leader and businessman Roger Romberg as its, quote, Man of the Year. For starters, the name of the award soon changed from Man of the Year to First Citizen, and with good reason. 8 times in 9 years, from 1978 to 1986, the First Citizen Award, either individually or jointly, was awarded to women. Since then, women have been frequent recipients of the First Citizen Award. And over time, the emphasis of the award has shifted from achievements in a particular year to a broader view, transforming the Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award into more of a lifetime achievement recognition. Further, over time, the Telegraph Herald Selection Committee has placed greater value on contributions of time, talent, or treasure in philanthropy and volunteerism more than achievements in someone's particular professional endeavors. After TH editors picked Roger Romberg in 1970, they announced that going forward, honorees would be selected from among nominations submitted by readers. It's a process that continues to this day. The selection committee reviews readers' suggestions before making its pick. Every time around, it's a difficult decision. There are just so many worthy candidates. Some First Citizen Award recipients have been selected after multiple letters of support of their nomination have poured into 8th and Bluff, while others, the unsung heroes, were honored with the First Citizen Award based on just one or two heartfelt and persuasive letters of recommendation. The Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award Honor Roll represents a cross-section of this community. There are those who have bolstered Dubuque through their financial support and civic leadership, and others whose contributions involved hour after hour of volunteer work, in many cases filling a critical need in the community. The First Citizen Honor Roll includes people associated with business, education, religion, the arts, tourism, and social services. Some recipients were well known before their selection, yet others only attained the spotlight when their selection was announced in the Telegraph Herald. Whatever their particular situation and standing, individual recipients appreciate the important message behind the First Citizen Award.
The Telegraph Herald gets a very well-deserved hats off for their sponsorship of our First Citizen Award for more than 40 years now. Our very special community is outstanding only because of our great contributors, and so the recognition of those contributors is key to making our community better and better.
Institutions and organizations also recognize the value of recognition, such as the First Citizen Award.
It is a pleasure to support the First Citizen Awards. The Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque's mission is to strengthen communities and inspire giving. And when I think of the First Citizen honorees, what are those people doing? They are strengthening our communities through sharing their gifts of time, talent, and treasures. It's a pleasure to support the First Citizens Award by the TH.
As the Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award approaches its 50th anniversary, we celebrate the accomplishments of all our honorees, and we appreciate the involvement of our readers in the community in this process. Congratulations to all our honorees.
I don't know who that narrator was, but I thought he was pretty good. In the year since our previous First Citizen Award program here, we said farewell to a highly respected and loved member of our First Citizen alumni group, Ed Babka. Ed and his wife Shirley, who is present with us this evening, was our honoree last year. We lost Ed just a few months later on June 20th. It was totally our community's loss. At this time, I'd ask you to please join me and observe a moment of silence in memory of Ed Babka. Thank you. As we indicated in the video, the First Citizen Award is bestowed upon an individual who has helped our community significantly through their contribution of time, talent, and/or treasure. And over the years, our honorees have represented virtually every segment of our community. Our award is one way to affirm these outstanding men and women, certainly, but it is also a way to celebrate and set the bar for others to serve and lead in our community. We're blessed with an incredible number of dedicated volunteers, leaders, and philanthropists. There are so many deserving candidates, our selection committee has a most challenging task each and every year to select the First Citizen Award honoree. We are honored to have several of our previous winners with us tonight, and in a way it serves as sort of a reunion, a class reunion, if you will. We call it our all-star team. But I would like to introduce each of our previous winners who are present tonight, and we'd ask them to stand or wave or whatever works for them when I would call their names. So I'd like to, we'll read off the names in order of one selection, those who are present. And according to my list, the first is also first-time visitor at our presentation program, Bruce Merriweather. Bruce? know Jan Hess was had another engagement, but was going to make it here as soon as she could, and I don't know if she's made it yet or not. Okay, well, better luck next year, Jan. So, okay, moving on. Larry Friedman. Larry. Larry was our honoree in 1999. Hunter Firsty. Hunter was 2001. In the year 2002, Jim Tyson. And in the back with her son and daughter, I lost my place, Norma Denlinger. It's great to have Norma with us this evening. Sister Helen Huey, 2009. Sister. Year 2010, Jean Kwan. Jean. Year 2011, John and Alice Butler. In year 2012, Michael Deere. And year 2014, John O'Connor. There he is. And in the back with Norma Denlinger, we also have Shirley Babka, and it's great to have Shirley with us. Just before we came over to the Diamond Joe, I received a phone call, voicemail message from a member of the University of Iowa Athletic Department who wanted to make it with us this evening, but plans fell through. But he did leave a message, and we're going to see if we can get our audio to work on that one.
Regarding Terry, first of all, just so happy for him, such a well-deserved recognition. Nice recognition and so well deserved. Secondly, just thing about Gary, we've worked together now for 18 plus years. He's a consummate professional, just does a tremendous job. I don't hear him do our games, but I've heard him do basketball games, and he just does a great job covering the Hawks. Very, very knowledgeable, just excellent on that front. To me, more importantly, just the thing I appreciate, he's been a great friend, not a good friend, a great friend. Just outstanding at every turn. And as you well know, 18 years, a lot of highs, and certainly a lot of lows to go with that. And that's when he's at his best. He's just, the more of the moment, the better he is. So I've always appreciated that about him. He's been extremely just loyal and strong, even in the toughest of times, which, if you do anything in life, you go through those. So he's been great that way. And then the other thing I just want to share with the crowd is one of the things I truly enjoy is working with Gary, whether it's doing the sports stuff or going out on the nightclub circuit and just traveling around the state of Iowa, whether it's in Des Moines or the small towns, and those are really the most fun. But just watching Gary, watching him work, he just truly enjoys, being with people and being, I think he connects so well with everybody throughout the state. So he's really just a rare person, and the guy I've got tremendous respect and admiration for him. Then the last thing I note, and we finally got to meet Cindy, last 2 years ago. Very good to have her. About 2 years, but got to have dinner with her and go to a show up at Loris. We just had a fantastic night. So 18 years, it's great to meet her. And, kudos to her for following Gary's work schedule. Boy, he's got a schedule, he's on the move, but again, nobody wants to move him. So that's a long-winded message. I apologize for that, but if you want to convince that, again, just a great professional, unbelievable friend, and just great admiration for the way he loves his job and loves the people he works with. So anyway, appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck with the event tonight. Sorry I couldn't be there.
Gary, we're going to have to talk later about this 18 years before he met Cindy. But and it was great to get the phone call from Coach, but did he really have to call collect? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I would at this time like to have Steve Fisher come forward. We've got a little last-minute bit of business. I wanted to read just a little bit of Gary's history. Gary, our honoree this evening, learned at an early age the importance of giving back to his community. A native of Cascade, Gary was born in 1951, the oldest of 7 children of Skip and Phyllis Dolphin. His parents owned a combination grocery store and tavern in Cascade. Gary appreciated the support his community showed their family when his father died in 1966, and he has been paying back that generosity ever since. Year in and year out, Gary lends his time and talent to dozens of nonprofit organizations in the greater Dubuque area. As the TH noted the other day, if you haven't attended a local fundraiser where Gary served as the MC, you need to get out more often. He is the most in-demand MC around, and he volunteers his time and skill willingly to benefit local nonprofits. And that's not all. He also lends his business and fundraising expertise to various organizations, prominent among them being our local United Way. Gary attended Loras College and the Brown Institute of Broadcasting in Minneapolis before beginning his broadcasting career in Dubuque in 1971. In 1987, he was hired by U.S. Bank, or what is now U.S. Bank, and I understand Bruce Merriweather made that hiring decision. He's denying it now, but I understand he did. And Gary is now Vice President for Business Development at U.S. Bank. When he joined the bank, Gary remained involved in broadcasting on a part-time basis, but part-time is a relative term when it comes to Gary's schedule. He called radio play-by-play for Northwestern University basketball and worked as the network TV coordinator for the Chicago Bears. Then, in 1996, our honoree emerged from a large field of talented sportscasters to be selected the next voice of the Iowa Hawkeyes. He calls football and men's basketball games, as well as hosts related programs such as coaches' shows. He's been doing that for 20 years now, and it's an exhausting schedule. At least it would be exhausting for most of us. A 2-time winner of the Sportscaster of the Year award, Gary received the Dubuque chapter of American Fundraising Professionals Outstanding Volunteer Fundraiser Award in 2012. Gary and his wife Cindy, who apparently doesn't get out that much, they live in Piasta. Their family includes their son Neil, daughter-in-law Amanda, and 2 granddaughters, Ray Lynn, who's age 6, and Maddie, who's age 4. I bet they're the ones sitting right there. For his tireless commitment to this community, for his professionalism, and for being such an outstanding ambassador for Dubuque, Dubuque County, and the entire state of Iowa, please join me in congratulating the recipient of the 47th Annual Telegraph Herald First Citizen Award, Gary Dolphin.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's enough. Thanks a lot. Those of you who know me best know that I agree to MC many, many events so we can get it started on time, keep it moving, and get off. I may take a little extra time tonight, but this is a very humbling evening for me. I love being involved in the community, whether it's here or across the state. And for those of us that love volunteering their time, we don't do it for plaques or awards. But I will tell you, this one's pretty special. I've long admired the Telegraph Herald. Brian mentioned I came to town Labor Day of 1971, and Gary Olson was the first person I met. So that'll tell you why my personality went south a little bit.
started at KDTH. After I met Gary Olson, I met Red McAleese. And then I met, I met George Lipper first. And I found it kind of ironic as I tried my best to memorize the 46 previous winners of the TH Award, this First Citizen. And many of them started at Woodward and at KDTH in particular, where I think I really formed my personality. I got a couple stories there. I'll be brief, but it's interesting to see Tom and Bob Woodward here tonight, because when I started at KDTH, the Telegraph Herald, Woodward owned KDTH and CAT FM, and so Bob Woodward, the other Bob Woodward, was my first big-time boss. Of course, Bill was such a great person, and as you all know, a great community supporter as well. So I got to know the Woodwards back in the early 70s, and so it's kind of fun. I'm at that age now where I can speak about generations. And the other interesting story about KDTH at 8th and Bluff was 2 doors down was Tyson's. And that's where I first met Jim Tyson. And man, what a great example he set for me and for many other people, as you all know, down through the years. But I want to thank, I bring that up because I want to thank the Woodwards, I want to thank the Telegraph Herald for their wonderful support, not only of this event, but throughout the years. I still can't wait for the newspaper to get there in the morning so I can go out to the mailbox with my coffee and sit down and see what I might have missed the day before. Can you tell I'm catching up with social media? I'm not there yet, but when Brian called me and told me about the award, he said, now you can tell your family and friends if the weather's bad. We're streaming this live on telegraphherald.com. I go, what the hell is that? You're streaming what? You're streaming. Okay, I'll figure it out. So, Jim Leitner, I knew Jim's dad, Harry, of course, was a good friend of mine. Bill O'Neill, Hal Lagerstrom. I saw Elaine Lagerstrom a few weeks ago. We inducted Hal onto the Kinnick Stadium Wall of Fame. Elaine is, I think, 95, living in Texas, and could still run circles around us. So the TH and the Woodwards are very special to me and our family. The other component that dawned on me is I think the Franciscans were first, and then the Sisters of Presentation, then the BVMs, but came through the line tonight, and I showed them my still bruised knuckles from taking a ruler across my hand, and still have a welt on the back of my head, and from 2nd grade. Taught me some valuable lessons. Interestingly enough, Monsignor Jim Miller probably has more welts than I do, though. We grew up in Cascade together, right, Father Jim? I looked at the list for the last couple of weeks. I took a copy of the article with me to Tampa because I wanted to read it a couple times over and get a feel for what this evening means. And of the 46 previous winners, 38 of them I know personally, whether it's the Butlers or Jim, of course, Larry Friedman, who keeps going like an Energizer bunny. I mean, that guy's unbelievable. Mike, I've known for a long time. Jock O'Connor, they don't come any better than that. The Quans, and then I saw Merriweather's name on there. I forgot about him. So Bill Cruzy's got to be turning over in his grave, and Merriweather jumped in Eagle Lake up there in Wisconsin when they probably got word. But Bruce made the mistake of hiring me in 1987 when I kind of had my fill of radio and TV and the goofy hours that you work. I thought, you know what, I either got to move from Dubuque to make a better salary, and word got out in a hurry that I actually was going to go to Milwaukee and be a weekend television sports anchor. We had a young family and bought our first house and all those wonderful things, and the phone rang one day, and Mike Riley was at the other end of the phone. He said, hey, meet me down at the shot tower. So we went down, we had a draft, and he said, did you ever think about banking? I go, hell, I can't balance my own checking account. Why would I consider balancing somebody else's checking account? Well, he said President Reagan has deregulated banking and the airline industry, and now the days of just sitting in the corner at the bank and letting people come in the door. Now you've got credit unions and savings and loans, and Bob Hafer's here tonight, and insurance companies and financial services. They all can sell banking products now. We need guys with journalistic or public relations backgrounds to help us get the word out about First National Bank at the time. So I took that leap of faith, and here we are almost 30 years later, and I will promise you, and I've said this publicly, banking or just being in another profession that isn't sports involved has helped me so much with my sports broadcasting career, because it has forced me to know what's going on in the world, and we use a lot of that subject matter in our broadcast, because as you all know, an Iowa Hawkeye broadcast runs about 8 hours, and it's so much more than the game. You've got Grandma so-and-so in Sioux City's 98th birthday, and she's been a Hawk fan all of her life. So Podolak and Bobby and I try to try and make it a family event. And so, but it all started here in Dubuque. But I wanted to, my love of broadcasting kept me involved, at least on a part-time basis. And then 20 years ago, I tell people it only took me 27 years to get my dream job. So never lose faith or never lose hope that if your dream job is still out there and it seems unreachable, it's not. But I know 38 of the previous recipients previously. Roger Romberg was on the Old First National Bank Board. Ed Babka was on the Old First National Bank Board. And I learned a valuable lesson from Bob Waller, Jr. when I was at the TV station. You're going to think this is really ironic, but when I was at the television station back in the 80s, FDL, Hormel had another strike, and it was ugly, and you all have lived through those. And I was anchoring the news then, so it was my job to try and get an interview with Bob Waller. We could always get the labor side. We wanted both sides, and not Bob, but his secretary would slam the phone down in my ear. And then one day I'm on the air, and we're doing a story about the Dubuque County chapter of the American Cancer Society is hosting their annual golf outing, fundraiser golf outing at, I don't know, Fillmore Fairways or Bunker Hill. Only cost $10 to get in, and typically they've raised $1,200 a year for the Cancer Society. I said, what? And I made the mistake of mentioning, well, what a great event that seems for a great cause. Next thing I know, knock at the door at the station, in walks Frank O'Connor, and he says, congratulations, you're the next chair of the Dubuque County chapter of the American Cancer Society golf outing. That was my first volunteer activity 40 years ago. That's how I got involved. And the first board meeting I went to for the Dubuque County chapter of the American Cancer Society, Bob Waller is sitting across the table from me. And he had never met me, and I got up and walked around the table after the meeting. I introduced myself to Bob. We became friends. He too was on the bank board, and I got that interview ultimately with Bob Waller. It taught me a valuable lesson. Volunteer and civic involvement gets you places that you don't think you can get. It gives you an advantage. You meet great people like everyone in this room. You develop bonds and relationships with people like everyone in this room. Norma Denlinger, one of my very dear friends, Norma and I are co-chairs of the B Branch Beatification Project. So we'll be knocking on your door soon asking you for $500 to buy a park bench at 24th and Jackson. But that's what's fun about all parts, being involved with all parts of the community. And that B Branch thing is such and I know Mike Van Milligan was here, Mike and Mayor Buell. What a great move by the city to get that going. I'm wandering a little bit, and I'll wrap it up. But I guess my bottom line is, to me, it's a joy to be involved in the community, whether it's volunteer, charitable, civic. But I owe a great debt to my family. Obviously, they've given me. I have a little laryngitis. I apologize for that. I think it was that double overtime game the other night. I was yelling angrily a little bit more than I should have. You put the bowl game on top of the Nebraska basketball game. It's not been a good week for me, so that's why this is fun to be here tonight. But my wife Cindy's here, and Kirk. Kirk always kids me. Yeah, Cindy? The reason nobody's met her in 25 or 30 years is because she endured a lot of cold nights at Dalzell Field and University of Dubuque and Loris, and when I finally got my dream job, she had had enough of that outdoor weather stuff, and she's from Wisconsin, and so she loves her Badgers first or Hawkeyes second, so I cut her some slack. We have some interesting conversations when Wisconsin plays Iowa, but she's kept a lot of scorebooks over the years, so when Neil was born, is Neil still here? I can't. Officer Dolphin in the back, our offspring there. If Mike's still here, Roy, don't dock him time for he's on duty, but he wanted to at least stop by and everybody thought I needed a bodyguard to get here tonight. That's right. But Neil's when Neil was born, Cindy said, "You know what? You go do your thing. I'm going to stay home and raise our son," and that's exactly what she did, and she did a really good job because not only because of him, but our two beautiful granddaughters here, Ray and Maddie, as I call her, Mad Dog. It's amazing a 4-year-old could have that much energy. But Amanda, Neil's wife, is here. So I have my sister Terry and her husband Gary here from Cascade. We've got a sister in Florida, one in Chicago. The best broadcaster in the family, Scott, is up in Milwaukee. He's an award-winning broadcaster up there. And brother Herb, who just retired from McDermott Excavating, is in Arizona for a couple weeks, so he sent his best. But we really do have a big family. It's just that Terry was able to make it tonight, so I appreciate them all being here. As you all know, a family backbone is absolutely paramount to anything you do in your professional life, and so I'd have to start by thanking my family first, and they've been my real support mechanism for what I do. And I've never really been I've always been a yes man to a fault, but it's difficult for me to turn anybody down when they need a helping hand. And so as long as I'm physically able to do it, I'll continue to help out wherever I can in the community. Because of all of these other recipients who are here tonight, and those that are deceased, and those that couldn't be here tonight. I learned at an early age, when my dad died at age 36, how valuable a community is. And although Cascade's not as big as Dubuque, I can remember 2 or 3 days after Dad's funeral. I'm 14 years old, the oldest of 7 kids, the youngest is 2. And there's a knock at the door, and it was somebody from Catholic Charities. And I'm sure they left a bag of groceries or a check payable to Mom. And then it seemed like every second or third day somebody else would come knocking at that door with a bag of hand-me-downs or gift certificates to this or that. And you know, when your dad or a parent dies at a young age and dies unexpectedly, that you know, you're trying to deal with that. But now you're down to a widowed mother of 7. And in the 1960s, a bar and grocery store didn't make you enough to go on vacation every year to Florida, I can promise you. But she found a way. She worked 2 or 3 jobs and found a way to raise 7 hoodlums, and she did okay. But I'm always grateful for the people that helped us out in those trying times, and that taught me a valuable lesson at an early age. Hey, give back where you can, whether it's time, talent, treasure. So I try to certainly do all 3. And then, of course, to me, one other quick story at KDTH. Red McAleese was my hero, of course, because Red told me, and I'll never forget the quote. He says, "You know, you're not going to win every game. You're going to get your kicked certain nights. You better have a backup plan." I go, "Well, what's that, Red?" He says, "You got to have a sense of humor." And for those of us who grew up, tell a good story, do whatever. Just a diversion is always a form of comedy. But so I'd listen to him do the Trading Post. You know, Betty Thomas, Red McAleese, Gordy Kilgore. We all grew up with it. But Red, driving to work one day, and Red goes, "For sale." You know, he'd go along with the buy-seller trade items, and he'd go, for sale, so-and-so has a black Doberman pinscher for sale with a brown spot under its tail. and nobody would get it, but I got it. And he goes, "We'll have more at it."
more items after this word from Raider Implement. And on sale this week is the brand new 1967 International IH380 manure spreader. And let me tell you, at Raider Implement, they stand behind everything they sell. Nobody got it at the station. I got it. So I knew I was a young Red McAleese in the making. So he taught me the value. And as Kirk mentioned, we've been on the short end of a couple lopsided scores down through the years. But what a joy to work with, by the way. The other great story that taught me a valuable lesson is when you're fundraising, when you're serving your community, you've got to make the ask. We're all afraid to be told no, but you still have to make the ask. And here I am, 21 years old, first job ever in media, and I'm sitting in the news desk one day, at the news desk at KDTH, and I pick up the Telegraph Herald, and for those of you who know me, I'm an unbelievably diehard New York Yankees fan. Mickey Mantle was my hero growing up in the 60s. Mickey Mantle was everything to me. My dad was a great Yankee fan. And Mickey Mantle is coming to Dubuque to play golf in the Flex Steel Management corporate golf outing at Dubuque Golf and Country Club. And I'm shaking. I want to get an interview with Mickey Mantle. How do I go about interviewing or making the ask of the greatest switch hitter to ever play the game? And Gordy Kilgore is sitting right across the table. His Podolak like say, you can't make this up. I go, Gordy, I'm wringing my hands. He goes, what's the matter, son? Well, Gordy, Mickey Mantle's at Dubuque Golf and Country Club addressing Flex Steel's top 200 salespeople nationwide tonight. I need to get an interview with him. I know he's at the Holiday Inn up on Dodge. I just don't know how to go about it. And Gordy looks at me and he goes, well, why don't you pick up the god blank phone and call him? I go, what a novel concept. So good afternoon, Holiday Inn. Mickey Mantle's room, please. 2 seconds later, hello? And I know by that Oklahoma drawl, it's number 7. So, Mickey, speaking. I go, well, you don't know me. Well, I assume that. Well, my name's Gary Dolph, and he'd been retired 2 years. This is 1973. I said, I'm at the local radio station here. I do the sports for KDTH, and I'd sure like to get an interview with you. Yeah, come on up. Suite 202. I know right where that is. That's right off the Crow's Nest Lounge. So I jump in the station car and I fly up to the Holiday Inn, and I'm sheepishly knock on the door, and he opens the door, and he's got a glass of scotch in his hand, biggest forearms I've ever seen on a human being. Come on in. And, you know, in the end, he was an Oklahoma farm boy. His dad died at a young age. We shared those stories, and I interviewed him for 23 minutes and 38 seconds. And you Cub fans can appreciate that, because I said, well, what about this new phenom that is supposedly taking your place at Yankee Stadium, Bobby Mercer, who would later go on and play for the Cubs. Anyway, long story short, Gordy told me, you know what, you got to make the ask. So when I knock on your door and ask you for money, I'm not afraid to be told no, but you can't be afraid to make the ask, and that's what makes this community so special to me. Is we're not afraid to make the ask, and if we're told no, we'll probably come back next year with a different project and ask you again. And so that's why I try to say yes at every step. You know, in conclusion, we're all put on this world for a reason, I feel. You know, faith, family, the good Lord. If you love sports, that's great. Be involved in civic and charitable-minded activities. Raise your kids. Hopefully you live long enough to raise your grandkids and be a part of their life. But other than Mickey Mantle, maybe the coach that I respect most, other than Coach Ferentz, was John Wooden. And we get so lathered up now. Every year the Final Four rolls around and March Madness, and man, just to get to the Final Four, what a thrill! Yeah, because there's so much involved with these teams that get to the Final Four. These kids are so much pressure on them. It's $1 billion television contract that they're trying to perform their best on for us in our living rooms. 35 times a year. John Wooden grew up in a dirt floor house in southern Indiana, became a 3-time consensus All-America basketball player at Purdue, and all he wanted to do was coach. And he was willing to coach grade school, high school, ultimately found his way to UCLA when there was no television, and you had to jump on a train or a plane and fly coast to coast to recruit. And he found Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he found Bill Walton, and he convinced them to come to Westwood. And when you win a national championship, it is so hard to do. He won 9 in 10 years. He won 9 national championships at UCLA in 10 years. That'll never be duplicated, not in our lifetime, I can promise you. But I had the chance to interview Coach Wooden a few years ago in Indianapolis at the Wooden Classic. And the thing that struck me, he's sitting there 95 years old, he's going to a banquet, as well dressed as anybody in the room tonight, had his cane, but didn't want any help from anybody. He'd get up and walk to the limos that pulled up. I said, Coach, do you have a basic philosophy in life? He goes, well, I don't know what you mean by basic, son, but let me tell you something. The next time you go to the cemetery or a graveyard, look at any headstone and look at the date of birth and then look at the date of death. I go, okay, where's he going with this? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, look at the dash between date of birth and date of death. Okay, everything's hyphenated. He goes, that dash is your life. What did you do with your dash? What are you going to do with your dash? A dash is only that long, but it represents a lifetime. Everybody's born, everybody dies. He said, it's my philosophy that you make the most of your dash as you possibly can. You help people wherever you can. So tonight is just part of my dash. Thank you very much.
I'll leave that up here for a minute.
Once again, congratulations, Gary, and we're very proud to have you join our First Citizen Award alumni group, so thank you very much. Speaking of dashing, you don't need to dash. We still have a few minutes. I think there's still plenty of food on the buffet over there, and they probably have not run out of adult beverages as well. And if you didn't get a chance to say hello to Gary, I think we'll be able to get him to stick around a little bit later. If you didn't sign the guest book when you came in, please do so on the way out. And remember that if you'd like to review the program, we will have that archived on telegraphherald.com. This is a very special night for us at the Telegraph Herald and Woodward Communications, and I think by Gary's remarks and his reflection on the community and the people who preceded him with this award, you can get a sense of how special it is for our community as well. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.